what is that one reason? Why should I pick up the phone and call Michelle right now?
Because you never know what may happen.
Okay.
That is the big reason. And you and I may be feeling well right now, and then 5 minutes later, something happens. I know but that's the thing. And then if you have children, that should scare you. The fact that anything can happen should scare you and let you know that it is urgent. It is very important, of course, but it is very urgent. If you ask me, I kind of think there should be some type of requirement, because when you have an estate plan, it really does help. Not only it helps your family, and it reduces the expenses that will come out of your estate.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of NY100. We're in Brooklyn. Love Brooklyn here, and today I'm sitting with a very, very special guest. We met at a Carver seminar where she was speaking about trusts and estate planning. Michelle, nice to connect with you. And let me just give you guys a little background about what's about to take place here. So we're all inundated with a lot of decisions to make, a lot of options, a lot of decisions to make, and we have to put it into 4 categories, right? The first category is urgent and important. The next is urgent, well, important, but not so urgent. Other is not really important, but quite urgent. And the last category is not important, not urgent. I'm going to put that on the screen so you can follow along with me. Typically, if you're a person that's very highly, productive, you want to focus on the first 2 categories: urgent and important, urgent and non-important. I know I'm speaking for a long time here, but I want to get you on track here, right? And this is exactly what the topic is about. Something it's very important, but you don't need to do it tomorrow, but it's extremely important for your life. So we're talking about estate planning, all right? Mm-hmm. And thank you for coming on and being a part of this interview series. I truly appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
But before I say anything else, I know I've been rambling for a lot, but this disclaimer: this should not substitute any of your legal advice. Right. This is for educational and general educational and entertainment purposes only. Okay. That's correct. So that's something I need to say. So first off, thank you, Michelle, for being a part of this. And first question I'd like to ask: how did you get into this estate planning and just in law in general? How did you get into law?
Oh, how did I get into law? I've always known I wanted to be a lawyer. Some people they're able to pinpoint a time in their life where they knew that is what the thing they're doing is what they wanted to do. Mm-hmm. I don't have that period. I think I've always wanted to be a lawyer. I've been exposed to different professionals from a very young age because of the career path my mother was on. So as I was going through high school, I actually remember I went to a school that was actually in medicine. Mm-hmm. And I always knew I wanted to be a lawyer, so I never really focused on the medical part, like taking AP Bio and all those things. But then one summer, they were recruiting us to do a summer internship at a hospital. And I remember saying to myself, I might as well take it to rule it out, to make sure this is not what I want to do. And that is like the earliest I could remember where I was like, I want to be a lawyer. You know what I mean? I just remember wanting to rule out other careers, but I don't remember the day when I was like,
This was in high school?
That was in high school. That was in 10th grade.
Okay. And you mentioned your mother's career. Was your mother a lawyer as well?
No, my mother's not a lawyer. My mother's a mortgage broker.
Okay.
So of course she had her own business.
Okay.
So given her career, I was exposed to other lawyers, other mortgage brokers, real estate brokers, accountants, a lot of professionals. I was just surrounded around daily.
So take me to, and we're going to get into a lot of estate planning, all the juicy stuff. If you want to skip, please don't. But I'm going to leave all the timestamps in this video. So if there's a pressing question you want answered right away, all the timestamps will be in the description, right? But I really want to know. So what was the origins of the career? How did that look like? What was, I guess, your first job or your first internship? What was the beginning of your career look like?
You want to go back to college? Like, what was the first internship or
So
how
you
the
got
track?
you got your degree in law? How is that?
Oh, I went to University of Maryland,
Okay.
College Park, and I got my degree in criminology and sociology. So it was 2 degrees. Um, I thought I was going to do entertainment law.
Okay.
So I did an internship at Island Def Jam. I realized that that was not the clientele that I wanted to.
For entertainment law, what does that consist of?
Oh wow, I can't really even explain. Entertainment law is a broad area, it's just who your clientele, I guess, is and their specific needs. So you're mostly working with artists.
Okay.
You'll be working mostly with probably actors, singers, and they're not necessarily the big names. They're probably up and coming, especially early in your career. And it's a lot of contract negotiations, knowing about album sales, record deals. It's like the 360 deals. You need to know all of those things.
Whoa! This
It's a lot.
is this is really cool. This is gonna be the first timestamp. All right. So what? All right. I have my list of questions, but I love to dive into different topics. So what are in some of those contracts? Because there are a lot of notable cases of artists not owning their music, and then
Yeah.
So what are in some of those contracts that maybe we should be aware of?
So I
know you dabbled in it. You dabbled in it. Okay.
touched it. I was in the marketing department.
Oh, okay.
So I didn't dabble enough to really be able to tell you.
Okay.
But of course, the 360 deals are the worst deals.
I don't know. What is a 360 deal?
360 deals, from my understanding, and please don't quote me. I know there's going to be other entertainment lawyers that be like, that's not right. This is not my forte. But what my understanding is a 360 deal means that the record label that you sign with, they could recoup the money that they've given you from everything you've done. If you act, they could get a percentage of your.
Oh, so they're taking money from your brand and your
Yes,
likeness.
basically,
Okay.
I believe it's your whole brand they're taking from, not only just your album sales and touring, but everything you possibly do. That is what I understand. If it's not correct, please.
All right. If it's not correct, you won't even see this in the video. No, but no, I appreciate that. And then so you started in the marketing department at entertainment law. You switched and then you moved into what part? What section?
So that was in college, and then it was time for me. Oh, and then in the latter part of my college career, I, through my mom, met 2 attorneys, and they have been my mentors ever since. This was in my junior year and senior year of college, and I interned with them, and they were family law attorneys. They were 18B attorneys, which means that they are attorneys who are basically appointed by the state to represent you if you do not have the funds to hire your own attorney. And I worked with them, and I saw so much. It was so emotional, but they were probably my first real introduction to Black attorneys.
Okay.
Day in, day out, going to court with them. If they're there till 10 at night, I'm there till 10 at night. And I live close to one of them, so I would just come home with them. And it was fun and exciting, but nerve-wracking at the same time. And I actually did that for about 3 years until I started law school.
And what were some of the cases? Was it just general law? Like, was it?
No, it was all family law.
All family law. Okay.
All family. We're talking about custody cases, neglect cases, cases involved ACS. Those were most of the cases that they worked on. Yeah.
So guys, if you are interested, we are doing a full interview on family law, but I'll leave the link in the description about that, all right? But I do want to focus on the state. And first off, I want to understand, and for some of you guys who don't know, what is estate law? All right, so what I want to know is what is estate planning?
So estate planning means, well, when you talk about your estate, you're looking at everything that you own.
Okay.
And what you want to do is you want to create a plan for everything that you own. And the plan is really for in the event that you become disabled or so sick that you can't take care of yourself, or you're planning for your passing, What is going to happen to your assets? What's going to happen to your children? If you have minor children or a child who has special needs, what is going to happen to them if you are the breadwinner and you're the person taking care of them? We're dealing with things as small as digital assets, such as your digital assets are your passwords for your Facebook account, your Instagram account, even your bank account. You need to be able to tell your loved ones what you want to happen to those accounts when you pass away. So a part of your estate plans, you'll have like your passwords listed somewhere. So it's as small as planning with your digital accounts to as big as planning with your properties and all the money that you may have in your bank account.
All right, so if I want to kind of understand this, make sure I understand. So estate planning is planning. So first off, it's identifying all the things that you own.
Yes. So first you want to identify all your assets and all the people in your family who rely on you and who need you, who need you because they are a minor, or they have some type of special needs and you're their guardian or in charge of their care. So you want to identify all those things. Let's take, for example, let's say you have a single mother who has 3 children. So she now has to plan what happens to my 3 children if something happens to me before they turn 18. Who is going to take care of them? Where are they going to live? Then that person may say, I have X amount of money in the bank. Let's use $100,000 saved up in the bank. Or I have $100,000 in life insurance. How am I going to use that money to take care of them? And who is going to control that money for them? So the plan will be consistent of all of those things.
Okay, so now I have like a few questions. I'm trying to see what's the best way I should. Okay, I guess the first one is, so from my understanding of estate planning, I just want to make sure I follow along, make sure people are following along. Estate planning is first of all identifying the ownership of identifying all the assets that you own and figuring out what to do with them should you be deceased or disabled.
That's correct.
Okay, so I guess is why actually go through the estate planning process? So why is it important to, actually before I ask that question, there's a terminology, a will and a trust. First, I'd like to, what is the difference between a will and a trust? What is a will and a trust and what's the difference?
Okay, I'm glad you asked me that question. That's a big question because a lot of times clients come and they're like, I want a trust. I want to do a trust. And then when you speak to them, they're like, oh, I don't want to do a trust.
Okay.
A will is basically a document that you draft up where you're going to appoint a person who is called an executor to basically make sure that they follow the terms of your will. The will is going to list things, money, your home, that you want to give away in some capacity. You could direct that your house is sold and leave to charity. You could direct that your children live inside of the house. So basically the will is a document that your executor is going to have to take to court to probate to make sure that the terms of the will is followed.
Okay, gotcha.
The trust, there are different types of trusts, but in the most basic sense, a trust is a document where you are holding assets. You are telling your executor, or your trustee, you're going to appoint a trustee to hold the assets and care for them in a specific manner. So while a will really gives away a will alone, because there are wills that have trust inside of it, but a will without a trust basically gives away the assets right away.
Whoa.
I know it's a lie. It's a lie.
A will without a trust.
There are several types of trusts. You could have a will that does not include a trust, or you could have a will that includes a trust. or you could have a trust as a standalone document.
Okay, so how about this? How about we just separate them for
Separate them for simplicity.
We've explained what a will is, and I'm gonna recap. So, will is a document that you provide to an executor.
No, a will is a document where you appoint someone who is called the executor.
So you appoint to executor, and they follow the terms of the will, and so they make sure that all the assets that you want to give away in the way that you want them to be given away, they make sure that everything is done according to the will.
Exactly.
So that's a will. Okay, now let's move on.
An important distinction is that will must go to court.
Must go to court.
Yes.
Brilliant. So now let's just remove that from the side, just a little bit. And then what's a trust?
A trust is now, it can be a standalone document where you now appoint a trustee.
Okay.
Like in the will where you appoint a executor.
Okay.
In a trust, you appoint a trustee. The trustee is now in charge of, in simple terms, they're now in charge of holding and managing that assets for however long the trust says. And it gives to whoever you want to give it to, in a manner that you want it to be given to that person.
So, once these things are written in stone, can they be changed?
Oh no! Once a person passes away, there's no more changes to these documents.
Okay, all right. And then one thing when we met back at this seminar, you spoke about wills, and I went back home and spoke to my mom. I was like, "Ma, you need to get a will." And I was like, "Let's do it right now, right?" And there's this urgency with, I guess, with older people and people, older age. But in fact, when I'm going to talk about what I mentioned in the beginning, it's something that's important, but not most people see it as urgent. So why should people, I guess, younger, maybe in college or just graduating, why should, people in their 20s or 30s, why should they care about a will?
Well, I think we need to look at having a will or some type of estate plan, not only as important but urgent as well, because at any time, anything could happen to you. Even I believe that once you are no longer a minor, you need to have some sort of estate plan, because what a lot of people don't realize that once you turn 18, mom and dad can't make decisions for you the way that they were able to make decisions for you before. If you were in college and you get sick or you get ill or something like that, the doctors need to know who is able to make decisions for you, who can make decisions for you. The same thing with your finances. If you have a bank account, the bank can't just give your parents access to your bank account. If the school if you need to get information from the school may not be so willing to give away the information. So you should have some type of estate plan in place. Some schools, I think most schools do it, that when you are coming into their school, you sign paperwork letting them know, well, can we give this person access to your information? So they do have something in place. But even from a young, from a person who's in college to a person who's just starting to have children in your 20s and your 30s, okay, what's going to happen to you, God forbid, if something happens to you when your child is an infant? Who's going to take care of your daughter or your son? So you need to be thinking constantly of having some type of plan in place. You, at different stages of your life, whether it's you getting married, starting to have children, children are starting to move out, you need to have an estate plan and continuously go into your attorneys to update your will, update your estate plan.
So I want to know, what are the negatives of not having a plan?
Oh, wow. There are a lot of negatives. First of all, if you don't have an estate plan or you don't have a will, your assets will be distributed the way the state wants it to be distributed. So if you have 4 children and let's say you have $100,000 in assets, those assets, depending on the state you're in, will be divided in 4. But what if you have a child that you don't want to leave all that money to? Or what if you have a child who is not capable of managing that money? That is where the problem comes in. If you have a child who is not able to manage your money, or if you have a child that's on disability, that's a big one. There's a lot of times parents have a child that's on disability and they didn't make a plan. And what happens is that child now inherits that share, and they may be kicked off of disability, or they may be kicked off of any other public assistance that they're getting because a plan was not made beforehand. That's a big negative. The other thing is that if you have children, there may be people who raise your children who you do not want to raise your children. Let's say you become disabled. Let's say we're not talking about death now. Let's say you become disabled, or you become very ill, or you have an accident and you're incapacitated, even if it's for short term or long term. What happens is that if no one is able to access your bank accounts, if no one is able to make any health decisions for you, it can land in court. The most common, I believe, is a guardianship may happen. If you become incapacitated, you don't have a will, you don't have a healthcare proxy or power of attorney, they're now going to your family's going to have to go to court and ask the court to appoint someone to be your guardian, to make those decisions for you. And in New York, that could be thousands of dollars, tens and thousands that come out of your estate, out of that, just because they didn't make a plan.
All right, so basically, if you don't make your own planning, the state will do it for you.
Every state has their own administrative procedure as to how estates should be or will be distributed in the event there isn't a will or some type of trust in place.
So, then you probably want to have more control over that rather than having a state, because they don't.
Right.
They don't. And why is it quite problematic? Is it because they just don't know the person's situation? Is it because they just take cases very quickly? Why do you think the state isn't as, I guess, accurate, or it doesn't provide good judgment on?
Well, the state, they're looking at it from, I guess, a fair standpoint. It's like, well, if you don't have a will in place, then we're just going to give it to all your children equally. If you don't want that to happen, then or not only your children, like in New York, I believe your spouse goes first. Not I believe, your spouse goes first if you're married, and a portion goes to children if you have children with that spouse. And then it just goes down from there based on who you have in your family. But if you don't have a family, eventually the state will take it. So I have clients who have no husband, or wife. They don't have any children, deceased cousins. They were probably the only child who was the only child. Their parents were only child. And they run into a situation that they have no living family members. Who's going to get my asset? They may give it to a friend. They may divide it up into different charities.
But the state is going to say
you have to create a plan, because you don't want the state to get their hands in. Because even if you say to yourself, well, I'm okay with the state giving it to my husband and 2 children, what happens if they pass away and you still haven't created a plan? Are you okay with your sister who you don't like?
So that goes into updating your will and your trust as circumstances changes.
Big thing too is always, if you have a will or a trust in place and someone has died, one of the beneficiaries named in the will or trust has passed away, or their life circumstances has changed, I recommend that you go speak to an attorney to see how those changes will affect your estate plan. Okay,
so let's take it back a few things, because we dove quite heavily into that. So again, estate plan, the negative effects of estate planning is that you no longer have control of where your assets are going.
If you don't have an estate plan.
If you don't have an estate plan,
Correct.
It's in the state's possession to make all the judgment and determine where everything is going, and that can lead to some adverse situations. So, the topic of, I guess, death and being deceased and afterlife, it can be it is quite morbid for a lot of people, and I'm assuming this is what kind of averts people from actually thinking about this, right? So, why do you think people are resistant in actually creating a will, and how can people overcome this?
People, it's not that I think a lot of people are resistant, but I think it's more of an issue of, I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it next week. I'm too young. I don't have any assets. My children are grown. Those are the common reasons why I hear people they haven't created a will yet, or they're resistant to say. How to overcome it is to just do it. I think one of the things is that the public is not really 100% aware of the consequences of not having a will until they go through it. So they may have a loved one that passes away, and then they're like, oh, man, I need a will, or I need a trust, or I need to pay for my funeral arrangement. Another big negative implication that we didn't talk about, and I'm going to tie it all in, is that there's a tax consequence. There can be tax consequences if you don't have an estate plan in place. The last tax law that was passed is trying to phase out federal taxes that are due, death taxes, estate taxes that are due. But your state, I know New York still has it. And if you do not have a plan in place, you could owe a lot of taxes as well to the state. And you definitely need to meet with an attorney to kind of help you do that, to kind of make sure that you don't owe that much, or how do you lower your estate tax.
So, okay, no resistance. Okay, and what you said about the ideal tomorrow concept, this is why I prefaced the interview with that 4-category box of important, urgent, important, not urgent, things like that, right? So I would like for you to kind of shift the argument from important but not urgent. And you said that it's urgent because, again, you never know what's going to happen.
Right.
And then, you never know what's going to happen. I guess that's a major thing. And I guess playing devil's advocate, right? And, well, I have a ton of things that's, important. I can,
right.
It's life. We have so many things to think about, right. So how would you thread the needle, if you really had to thread the needle to speak to, these people right here who's watching, and they're on the fence here. If you're watching the video this far, I appreciate it. Thank you. You should subscribe to the channel, right? They're watching, and they're like, okay, what is that one reason? Why should I pick up the phone and call Michelle right now? Right?
Because you never know what may happen.
Okay.
That is the big reason, and you and I may be feeling well right now, and then 5 minutes later, something happens. I know but that's the thing, and then if you have children, that should scare you. The fact that anything can happen should scare you and let you know that it is urgent. It is very important, of course, but it is very urgent. If you ask me, I kind of think there should be some type of requirement, because when you have an estate plan, it really does help. It helps your family, and it reduces the expenses that will come out of your estate. Not only when, I briefly talked about the taxes, but if you become disabled, and your family has to go to court to get somebody to appoint you as a guardian, that's very expensive. If you're in a hospital and there's no one who's able to make a decision as to whether or not you want to be on life support or not, that can be problematic and cause so much discord in your family, I think it should be required to have some sort of plan in place.
I just want to wrap up here, but I want to get more into just Michelle. So you obviously, you have the acumen, your degree, your experience and whatnot. So, but what keeps you doing this? Like, why estate? What brings you, into like doing this for your clients? So yeah, why do you continue to do your job?
Why do I do what I do? This is not something that I woke up and decided I want to do. This particular area of law, it wasn't like, oh, this is what I want to do. I just really saw a need in my community and saw issues that were happening in my community that I wanted to address. And one of the issues were that in my particular area, there are a lot of people of color who own brownstones. And we see a lot of instances where the families or the individuals who own the home, they pass away and they don't have a will, and then the families are in an uproar. I see a lot of it, and they lose their homes. Our communities are changing. So from just word of mouth, I would just hear people talking about how they're going through these problems with their families, or they have a loved one who is ill. I think the big reasons why I really got pulled into this area is because of the instances or the stories of elder abuse, of children who were abusing their grandmother or their parents because they wanted to get money out the house, or elders letting me know that money is missing. Can you help me? Can you help me find it? So when I started my practice, I did a little bit of everything, and then realized that there is something so powerful in being able to speak for the powerless. And for me, elders, I see so many instances of them being mistreated and no one's really advocating for them. And a lot of time the elders, elder abuse is very underreported because a lot of elders stay in it. They don't talk about it. They just stay in it. And I wanted to be a voice for them. I wanted to identify, go around and tell people. That's why I go to different events. I go speak at banks. I go speak at different places to let people know that, hey, if you or someone you know is going through it, there's something you could do about it. And then with elder law issues, the big stuff are like creating a will, drafting a will, special needs trust, Medicaid. Am I eligible for Medicaid? How do I get on it? What am I going to do with my asset? So that's kind of one of the reasons how I got pulled into it, is just living here and all my experiences of living in this community. And then I come from an immigrant background, and through my mom, I really understood the importance of generational wealth and making sure things are passed on. And I'm such a big proponent of wills because I believe that people should have a say-so into how their assets should be given. Like, I want my child to have it. And I just wanted to be able to assist them and make sure their wills are carried out after they passed away. In the way they want to, because they believe in this generational wealth concept of passing on to my loved ones. So I also think it's so very important. A lot of times when a will is probated, there's a lot of litigation that comes from them. There may be people who don't like the will and they want to fight it. For me, I think they need to stop. We need to stop allowing people to fight these wills so easily, because a lot of times what happens is that there's a settlement, and the settlement is not in the interests of the person who made the will. So, I just really wanted to advocate, I guess, for my elders who have come before us and make sure that they are in a good position or that their voice is being heard. And I want to advocate for the people who are no longer here. Like, they put their wishes on a piece of paper. Let's make sure that it's carried through correctly. And that's just, again, it's not a situation where I said, I want to do elder law and estate planning and wills and trusts. It was just something that I was pulled into.
You felt like you was guided into making that decision?
I felt that I was guided, or I was pulled. You know how some people have a sign. Some people in some countries, they have like assigned marriages. So I felt like this was a sign to me. It was just whispered onto my heart.
Would you say? Would you call it destiny? Would you call it fate? Would you call it?
I would call it
a calling.
A calling.
Okay.
At this point in my life, because you never know where you'll be called to. So I definitely call it a calling.
Well, I really felt that. I really felt that, and I always considered lawyers, because lawyers, you really see the truth of humanity, right? I always considered lawyers like to really see people and at his best and at his worst state as well, and you essentially you're trying to pull people out of
whatever mess they're in. That's what lawyers do. We fix your mess.
Yeah. So
and try to keep you out of it.
We truly appreciate that, Michelle.
Oh,
and found a couple questions before I wrap up.
Okay.
So firstly, what I like to do is I like to kind of share my thoughts on what I thought about you. You are very good. You're very good at just call it planning, but like I guess routing yourself. Like you know where to make the turns, you know where to make the twists. Like when you said in college, you went here, you did entertainment laws. Okay, it wasn't for you. You made that pivot. Yeah. I think you know where to make your pivots. And a lot of times people don't know how to do that. Like I'm quite like that. I'm quite stubborn, so like I don't know when to change,
right.
but you know when to change. You allow things to happen sometimes. I get that feeling. You allow, and you're not so stringent on outcome. You kind of allow things. Am I kind of accurate?
When you say allow things,
what I
do
mean, you don't focus too much on the how. So sometimes us people are very kind of controlling on. Like, of course, you have your goal.
Yeah.
But micromanaging each step, I think you kind of go with the flow of certain things.
Yes.
And I guess allow yourself to be guided. I mean, I believe in experience.
So am I.
So like you allowing the transference of a spirit or a flow of energy, and you're not blocking it or trying to reject it. So I've noticed that about you, and you're very actually you take on. You're very inspired by your mother. You really know it or not.
I'm very inspired by her.
Yeah, so I appreciate what you do for the community as well. We've met through Carver Bank, and you've spoken at seminars there. So last couple of questions I'd like to wrap up before we leave. Let's just say you're just beginning. You're in college now. You said Monroe College?
University of Maryland.
University of Maryland. You're just about to get started. You're going back in time. All right? You have 30 seconds to tell young Michelle something. All right? You're about to go back in time, right? And you want to give her some advice. Now you're there. Now you're with young Michelle. And you have 30 seconds to say something to her. What would you say?
I would tell her to be patient.
Okay.
I would tell her that things are not going to always work out the way you want it to, but they will work out the right way. I will tell her that although she's heard this by strangers before, but the older Michelle knows that sometimes when you are thrown off of your plan, when you are not on the path that you thought you're supposed to be on, it's okay, because what you're getting, what you will eventually get, will be so much greater than you ever thought. That's what I would tell her.
All right, back in time. That was amazing. I truly appreciate the time here. Thank you for watching this interview. If you haven't already, go on. Can you shout out your website to one of these cameras?
Oh, my website is www.mnrobinsonlaw.com.
Yeah, so if you're in the New York area, maybe even outside the New York area, and you want to get, this stuff done, give her a call. go to the website and whatnot and be in contact. So thank you for watching this video. Truly appreciate it. And subscribe if you haven't already. A lot of good information for you. Remember, be great. Cheers.